Hello everybody. What we're going to be doing tonight is a tier list for the Hexes and the Godsent Hexes in Hades 2. So let's just start off with the actual Hexes themselves. The first thing we're going to do is phase shift. Your Hex makes everything else move 50% slower for 4 seconds. Ready after 130 mana is spent. So my criteria for these is going to be, for the main hexes themselves, ease of use. So how much, how quickly you can use them. So how often are you going to actually proc them during a fight? Because a lot of builds don't spend a ton of mana. The second is going to be how useful is it by itself without the Godsent or without any upgrades. That's the main thing I'm going to go with. So those are the main criteria for the main hex. And then for the Godsent hex, it's going to be basically how powerful it is. Because I'm assuming if you're taking a Godsent hex, you're planning on using the hex, so the ease of use isn't going to factor into it nearly as much. If you're going for a Godsent hex, you're upgrading your hex, and you're just planning on using it. So you either have Moon in your Arcana going, or you're using a lot of mana. Probably both. If you're planning on taking Godsent hex, I love to use Moon. I just activate it by taking one of the two Arcana that are next to it. Either the one that slows down everyone while you charge your Megas, which is good if you're using mana, obviously. It's not great, but it used to be better, but it's still okay. And then the other one, which lets you crit. It gives you crit chance based off of comboing your Mega moves, which if you're using mana, you might also be able to do that. So it works with the Arcana cards that it's lined up with. So phase shift. Phase shift is powerful, but it's 130 mana, so we're going to drop it all the way down in C tier. Right here, phase shift, C tier. Alright, the next hex we're going to look at is Twilight Curse. Your hex launches a seeking projectile that inflicts morph on up to 5 susceptible foes. This is how you turn things into sheep. 40 mana is really easy to do on a lot of aspects. It's like a 1 Omega, or if you're using Moon, that is like what, 13 or 14 seconds, something like that, where it just comes up on its own without you using any mana. So yeah, we're definitely gonna, and it's also very good. It's effective crowd control for rooms. So as a curse a hex that you're going to want to be using on a regular basis, Twilight Curse is going to go in S. Third, Lunar Ray. Your hex fires a beam that deals up to 800 damage over 2 seconds. Ready after 30 mana. 30 mana is so easy to get, but if you're not upgrading Lunar Ray, giving it Pierce, extra damage, all the things you can go with it, or the Godsent hex, I'm going to definitely not score this very high. Let me think about this for a second. We're going to drop Lunar Ray in B. It's so easy to use, but you're going to basically kill 1 or 2 foes with it. And if you're against a boss, or if you have Frenzy on, or if it's good against wards, I guess, but you're going to kill 1 or 2 guys in a room, not even one armored guy. You're just going to break his armor if it's a big armored foe. And then if you have Frenzy on, things are going to be on top of you and hitting you. It's a real problem. Lunar Ray is not great unupgraded or without a Godsent, even though it's super easy to use. So it's sort of like a catch-22 there as far as that goes, I think. All right, Wolfhowl. I think this is the second S tier. It only costs, so what it does, your hex makes you rise up then crash down in the target area for 200 damage. This can crit. It is affected by global damage things. And there's also a crit now on Selene, right? Yeah. No, not Selene. Cersei. She can give you crit for your hex as you're doing your run, which is kind of cool. That's not really what's important. The 200 damage it's 50 mana, it's high mobility, it's safety. So yeah, it's gonna go in S tier for your basic hex. Next we have Moonwater. This is going to be the third. It's completely fine unupgraded, but any amount of upgrades. It has one upgrade that you can get to very quickly without having to pour a bunch into it. That'll allow you to stack a bunch of healing, which can definitely save runs. So without even putting the Godsent or anything into it, we're 70 mana. You know, it can be rough, but it's not undoable. I think 70 is it's kind of like the tipping point. I think we're gonna put, so we'll drop Moonwater in A. It's very good. Like I said, the 70 mana is the only reason I'm not gonna put it in S. Like I said, for the main hexes, we're gonna be ease of use is gonna be very important. So we will drop that in A. Next is Nightbloom. Your hex raises the last susceptible foe slain this encounter to fight for you for 12 seconds. Ready after 60 mana. 60 mana is not too bad. This is not, without any upgrades, this is not very strong. Now, it can be busted. You can do builds based around this. Where you, especially if you're going to go with Sun Worshipper, there's some really fun builds out there. You can get like 3 guys on your side between the charm from the duo boon between Hera and Aphrodite. You can get Sun Worshipper, which gives them plus 200% damage, and then you can the upgrades on Nightbloom. But that you're leading into that, and so the ease of use, we're just going to drop this next to Lunar Ray. Right here. We're going to drop it in front of Lunar Ray, though, I think. That Lunar Ray is so easy to use. We're going to put Lunar Ray in front of Nightbloom, actually. We're going to go like that. Okay, next. Total Eclipse. Your Hex blasts a large target area for 1,000 damage after 4 seconds. Ready after 90 mana usage. The base Hex for this, not so good. It's actually not nearly as much damage as you think it is. You'll break armor, knock a 1 ward off. Hard to hit anything that's not Typhon. It's good against Typhon, especially upgraded. But outside of that, good luck. You're never going to hit Chronos with this. You might hit Cerberus, and then that's about it. Without any upgrades, it's poo-poo. Costs too much mana to get into. Doink. D tier. Even though it's my favorite Hex for some reasons. Well, it's because of the Godsent side. But anyway, Dark Side. Your Hex turns you into an impervious living nightmare with her own abilities for 5 seconds. Ready after 110 mana. That's the problem with... There's no damage in Dark Side either, but it does provide you imperviousness. So we are going to drop it in the same tier as Phase Shift. I think right behind a Phase Shift. It gives you really good safety. It has some really good upgrade paths to go with it. The Godsent's amazing, but like that's not what we're judging on the main Hex itself. So, Dark Side, on your average build, it's bottom of C tier. Okay, next, what we got here? We have Skyfall. Okay, well, this one is a little strange. So, your Hex inflicts Shine and deals 50 damage to a random surrounding foes 8 times. The cool thing with this is, it just comes stock on Selene, which is Selene's a very, I think, slightly above average aspect. You know, it has good auto attacks, good movement because it's on the coat. It's only 60 mana to activate it. So we're gonna drop it in low A, I think, or maybe high B. We'll drop it in high B. Just because it comes stock. It does decent damage, but the thing is that I don't really ever find myself wanting to use the Omegas when you're on that Hex. If you're not leading into going into the Godsent, so that's kind of why we're separating the Godsent. If you're not planning it, you're just going to be doing a lot of auto tagging. So the thing with that, okay, if I'm going to back up here a second. If you're going to be playing Selene, the aspect, I think you should just have Moon on. That way you can just proc this at least once or twice per room. So, having said that, we're going to drop it in low A. I think just because I can't see. I was kind of judging this based off of you wouldn't have mana or whatever sometimes. But if you're playing Selene and you're not playing and using the Hex, you should just be playing one of the other code aspects. The Mel code aspect is just 10 times better if you're not planning on using mana or having Moon turned on for Skyfall. So we will drop Skyfall in low A. That's how I'm gonna go ahead and place all of the curses for just ease of use for the regular hex. Next, we're going to go into the Godsent hex, though. Let me pull those up here so we can get an accurate reading here on those. Okay, Squall of Demeter. That's where we're going to start. Your Godsent, your hex can be Godsent. All foes take 20 damage every 0.2 seconds. This one is also so like we have phase shift pretty low, right? So if you're using a ton of mana, which is what you're going to want to be doing if you're going to be going into the Godsent, it's just too much mana. The Godsent doesn't do enough. I think we're going to drop this into probably into D tier for Squall of Demeter. It's just not enough damage. Doesn't really do anything. Now, if you are to, like I said, I'm grading this on ease of use. Phase shift is very, very good. If you're using a ton of mana, phase shift's great. You might as well take the Godsent, but I don't think phase shift needs upgrades. So I think if you're into a ton of mana, you probably just ignore the Godsent for this, and you just take the phase shift because it's really useful for fighting things. So phase shift is really good on mana burn builds if you're using a ton of mana, or just using something like Shiva or Momus where you're just going to be using mana anyway. It's probably very good. Or like Moros who uses a ton of mana, or not a ton, but a good amount of mana. So you'll proc phase shift once in a while that way. Phase shift is very good if you can get into it. It's just very difficult to get into it. Okay, next we're going to go Temper of Zeus. Your hex can be Godsent. Lightning bolts repeatedly deal 80 damage near your shot. This makes the Twilight Curse usable during bosses, but the Godsent itself is just not very good. We're going to drop the Godsent into C. It's not, like I said, if you're playing Twilight Curse, it's not one that needs to be upgraded. You're just using it for room clear. Yeah, I mean, like, I never really found much use for the Godsent for this. It doesn't do enough damage to put all the points into it and to take multiple things that could be boons or extra hit points or hammers or whatever else you want to be taking in that situation. So that's what that's where we're gonna put that. I just don't really like it at all. So I'll just say that. Shine of Apollo. This is where things get juicy a little bit. Okay, your hex can be Godsent. You fire a bigger solar infused ray with Fuss 500 power. So without any buffs, that puts you at 1300 damage in 2 seconds. Now you're getting into like sexy range there, right? So that's really strong. The upgrade. Now I'm going to read through some of the upgrades for this. Instinct. Your hex has plus 50 power. Hunger. Do 20 plus damage. Bleh. I don't think these are actually specifically for this one. Never mind. We're just going to ignore reading those. It does have so two of the things that are really good for it. It has the upgrade that makes it do makes the laser do three like in like a triad shape out in front of you, and you can just point blank things with it, and it's so good. You also can get an upgrade that makes it pierce, which is amazing. You can get upgrades that give it plus 40 power every 1 second. You can get upgrades that make it last longer. You can get upgrades that give it extra power, like a ton of extra power. It's just, I think it's one that's like, if you have the whole big tree, I think it's like 500 power. So it just becomes, you can do between 10 and 15,000 damage to Typhon instantaneously. I don't actually think it's worth taking the upgrade that makes it so it fires in place, just because it makes it if you're doing that and the triple, you're just making it cost so much mana that it's kind of ridiculous. It is good because you can just like throw it, and I have taken it and it's not bad. If you're using a ton of mana, it's worth getting. But anyway, I digress. I'm talking about this too much because I love how much it just fries bosses. Shine of Apollo, S tier Godsent hex. Okay. Next. Doink. Hand of Hephaestus. Your hex can be Godsent. Cause a blast that deals 800 damage where you land. This is also very good. Like, probably going to drop it, the Godsent into. Let's see here. Probably going to put this into A tier. The Godsent itself. Like, you don't need upgrades for Wolfhowl to be very useful, but when you start, it is worth definitely upgrading it. So, doink. A tier for Hand of Hephaestus. There's some more upgrades. You can get upgrades that damage things where everything it does the blast damage to everything that's around you when you go up. So like when you jump, it hits everything on the way up, and then you can get another upgrade for it. So as long as you use it within 3 seconds of landing, you can do it again, and it's a ton of damage. If you're putting, that's my dog Murphy. If you're putting upgrades into it, Murphy, please stop. She's annoying sometimes. Murphy, no. Murphy, go in the other room, please. Murphy, come here. Shh, be quiet. Okay? I'm doing something. Be quiet. Go in the other room. Chill. Okay. So, yeah, there's a lot of good upgrades for it. It's very solid. Yeah, so we'll move on to the next one. What is the next one? Hearth of Hestia. Okay. Let me actually read what that does. The Hex can be Godsent rapidly inflicts Scorch on all foes until the blast. It basically, everything in the room gets 999 Scorch. It's very, very strong. If you're going to be putting points into this, it is also, it's not as, I don't think it's quite as, it's better for room clear, maybe, than the Shine of Apollo, but it's just barely, it's just not as good for bosses, because it only does like 1k damage. Now, if you have some of the boons that can go along with Scorch, you can make it do like 3k damage, because you have, it'll actually go past, you can actually get them past 1,000 damage with it, 1,000 things too if you start hitting them with other things, but it's very good. It's amazing room clear. You just put, if you have pyrotechnique, you just scorch rooms out. It's very, very solid. It makes the and then if you're putting upgrades into Total Eclipse, you can make it gigantic so it hits the entire room. It's going to cost a lot of mana at this point, but if you're leaning into the Godsent, you're going to obviously have Moon on probably and be using a ton of mana. So you're not going to go taking any of the stuff if you can't afford it. So next, doink. What's the next one? Allure of Aphrodite. You continually create heartthrobs dealing 80 damage. This could also, I think, easily do 6 to 9k damage, if depending on how much you can glue yourself to the boss. This is also a ton of mana, but this is going to be above Hearth of Hestia. It's actually probably going to be above Shine of Apollo, because you're completely safe doing it. You are in Dark Side, so you get to do a free phase of a boss. Basically, you get to phase whatever boss you're against, or just kill most of the room, and be completely safe. The safety this provides you if you start upgrading Dark Side, and you can get some pretty good things to go along with it. Like if you're playing Froth with or Froth and Chain, what's that? Static Shock with the Chain Lightning. Yeah, Static Shock with Zeus or Froth. You can get the thing where you just makes you attack way faster. You could just be, it's so many splashes. You get the upgrade where it takes on your attack boon. You will literally just like hit things with 1,000 waves. It's like that is actually probably almost more damage than the allure than the heartthrobs. It can be anyway, pretty close. It's really ridiculous. That's why we're dropping that in S tier. It just goes bonkers. Lance of Ares. Okay. It just inflicts wounds with each hit from the effect. It's good. It's not like S tier, but it's very good. I mean, like obviously, if you're playing Selene, you're going to be using mana. You're going to be upgrading your tree, or you should just not. You shouldn't be playing Selene if you're not doing this. You probably want to have Moon turned on, since this you're going to be playing around your Hex. You get pretty good upgrades for it. You're dropping wounds on things, which they're wounds, so it should count as a curse. Well, I know that the Scorch from the other one does. So yeah, it's going to help you towards origination. You're just going to be able to do a lot of damage to things. So we are going to drop this right behind Hand of Hephaestus into A tier. Okay, let's see here. We have Pride of Poseidon, Nurture of Hera left. I somehow missed them when I was scrolling through. Let's see here, 1 second. Nurture of Hera. Your servant is 25% faster and has a 30% critical chance. I didn't realize that they gained crit. That's probably why they're so strong. Okay. Did that always do that? I don't think it did always do that. Or I just never really read it all the way. Anyway, but if you have It's really good. If you're gonna be leading into the Godsent for this, I kind of only really lead into it if I. You can lean into it without having the duo boon with Apollo. Night what's that duo boon called? Sun Worshipper. Yeah, but if you do get Sun Worshipper and then you get this, you can really lean into it. So the Godsent, I am going to say, is probably A tier, like right there. The Godsent is very good. Um, it just lets you, and then when you start upgrading that tree, it allows you to like have it be permanently. It allows you to call it to your cast. It just lets you do all kinds of cool stuff. It's pretty sweet. And the last, but definitely not the least, Pride of Poseidon. I know what it does, but I'm just gonna go read it real quick anyway. Godsent for 10 seconds. Restore 4 health and 50 mana every 1 second. So that's 500 mana and 40 health extra on top of whatever you spec into. Like I said, if you're going for the Godsent, you're just gonna fill that tree out. I love filling the Moonwater tree out, especially get the gigantic one, because like you can like you're getting all your mana back every time you use it. You're getting gold. You're getting extra damage. I believe you can get with it. You can get so that it prevents like I think it makes you impervious. There's something that makes you impervious for 1 second. I think there's also another part of it that like heals all the damage you've taken in the last 2 seconds. You can add on a bunch of instances of healing onto it so that each one's doing a ton of healing. It's definitely S tier. Pride of Poseidon. Probably gonna drop it here. That's how I like safety. And Pride of Poseidon and Allure of Aphrodite give you the most safety. I've probably cheesed a couple 40 fear runs with like some of the more sus aspects. Like when I beat it with the Mel Axe was because I had like a 200% Aphrodite attack, and then I had Dash and Cleave, the hammer, and I just dashed everywhere, and then I had like 15 Moonwaters for the Typhon fight with the Rivals 4 Typhon fight. So I just used, and I also had 7 Godsent Hexes, so I literally, or whatever, 6, so I literally just cheesed it. I just like dash striked into it a billion times and healed myself. I just face tanked it and just like shredded him. Yeah, I mean I've definitely face tanked, or at least like taken 400 or 500 damage against Typhon and the Typhon Rivals fight and just not cared because I had so much healing from Moonwater. Or if you just have a Lure of Aphrodite, you can just like wait for him to go do a chin slam, proc it, stand there and phase him, because you do like 6,000 to 8,000 damage just with your heartthrobs, let alone what you're doing with your attack, your cast, and your special at the same time. So it's probably more like 10k you can do easily. It's not quite as much as you're going to do with the Shine of Apollo, but it's pretty ridiculous, and you're completely safe. Hand of Hephaestus can do quite a bit too. You can probably do 3,000 or 4,000 damage with the jumping up and down and the extra procs or whatever. And if you're going into the summons with Nurture of Hera, you can like you can just stand back. You can just be safe and run around, and your summons will just kill him really, really fast. So with the 200% damage from Sun Worshipper plus the crit and the movement and the attack speed or whatever she gives them, like yeah, this is definitely my tier list for the hexes and the Godsent hexes. And remember, I'm basing this off of ease of use for the regular hex, and then the Godsent hex, we're assuming you're leaning into the whole tree. So so basically what I'm saying is like the way that I'm kind of using the Godsent hex is not just the Godsent part of it, but like basically the basic hex that you're, whether or not you're going to want to use it on your average run versus like how good is the hex if you're really leaning into the entire thing. So that's kind of how I'm basing this. If anyone has any thing they want to add or just talk about this, I mean, I don't think this is the definitive list or anything. This is just my opinion and how I like to use things, and I think I think it's fairly accurate. Like, you might disagree with some things, but we can discuss that if you want. I hope everyone has a great day.